Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Trust and Identity for National Research Infrastructure information session. My name is Kerry and I'm from the AF and I'll be hosting today's session. Next slide. Before we go any further, I'd like to say the acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Australian Access Federation acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I'd also personally like to acknowledge the Kaurna people from where I am based in the Adelaide Plains. Next, thanks. Yep. In this session, we will be providing an update on Australia's evolving approach to trust and identity for national research infrastructure. We'll share the progress made to date and how the research infrastructure community is collaboratively co-designing a secure, connected and future-ready digital research ecosystem. We'll explore the latest developments in the Australian Trust and Identity Framework for national research infrastructures, including its common policies, standards and technologies, and how these elements are enabling a trusted, secure and interoperable digital environment for research nationally and internationally. I'd now like to introduce you to today's speakers. And from the AAF, we have Margie Janty. I'd like to introduce AAF's new Deputy CEO, who has only recently started with us and joins us from senior leadership roles and director roles across the higher education and research sector. And I'd also like to introduce Sarah Thomas, our portfolio manager, who many of you would know, and Fahame Imamjabe, our e-research analyst, who many of you would also know. Thank you. Next slide. And I'm delighted to present our guest speakers for today, our partners who will discuss their trust and identity incubators, highlight their experiences, why it's important to them and the benefits it offers to the research community. They include Professor Wojciech Kosinski, Chief Executive Officer from the National Imaging Facility, Dr. Kelsey Druken, from Associate Director, Release Management from Access NRI, and Dr. Lisa Yan, Chief Executive Officer from Microscopy Australia. Just in terms of housekeeping, we are recording this session, and if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will discuss them at the end. If we don't answer all of the questions today, we will be in contact with you after the session. Also, as mentioned in previous communications, we will be making this session available online and circulate via email in the following days. And now I'd like to hand over to Margie. Thank you, Margie.
Thanks so much, Kerry, and good morning to everyone. I'm delighted to be here to introduce the Australian Access Federation and its initiatives on behalf of Heath Marks, the Chief Executive Officer of the company. Now, for those of you who are new to the Australian Access Federation, we're committed to transforming Australia's research, teaching and learning communities. And we do this by delivering innovative technology solutions and policy with the intent of providing expert, secure access to digital resources, infrastructure across the entire research ecosystem. The Australian Access Federation was established in 2009 and is now regarded as Australia's trust and identity expert. And for over 15 years, it's established a reputation for leadership, innovation across a global network of over 80 federations. We're now a core part of the Australian e-research infrastructure landscape. We are the trust and identity capability for national research infrastructure. We're an enabler for trusted, safe and secure exchange of information between education and research institutions, both domestically and internationally. And we do this through seamless, verifiable, secure identity management. We're the national consortium lead for ORCID in Australia for the provision of persistent identifiers for researchers and scholars. And we're also a founding partner of the Australian Higher Education Cybersecurity Service. We facilitate seamless and secure collaboration by providing access to over 1,000 national and international services integral to research, teaching and learning. With over 10.9 million authentications annually, the AEF is a leader in trust and identity services for the higher education sector and research. All Australian universities are members of the Federation, and it's wonderful to see so many of the Federation's subscribers and partners attending today. Next slide, please. As trust and identity experts, we don't work alone. We explore and build solutions for community with community. From universities to national research infrastructure providers such as the Research Data Commons, CSIRO, Auran, Australian Biocommons, TERN, Microphotography Australia, and the groups that you see represented here on the screen who are current members or partners of the Federation for Trust and Identity Solutions illustrate the breadth of our engagement. Next slide. In a nutshell, we believe that trust and identity underpins every aspect of modern research. We're driven to create a more co-designed, researcher-centric national research infrastructure ecosystem, one that is connected and protected, and to be secure and efficient. And our guests today will share their experiences on how that is working for them. We've built a trust and identity framework for research infrastructures that includes policy and technology to enable researchers to experience and optimise a more cohesive network of services. Through one username and password, researchers can seamlessly access multiple services. Think sequences, supercomputers, data repositories, all sharing a common understanding of a user's identity. So we're committed to building a more connected future where research, industry, government and the community can easily collaborate, enabling advances in research, its translation, all of which are essential for priorities for innovation, productivity and sovereign resilience. Next slide. To leverage and enhance value for researchers and the nation, our trust and identity strategy is aligned and adaptive to the revitalised National Science Statement and imperatives. How do we do this? Well, we do it by building trust and identity infrastructure that modernises, unifies and strengthens the research ecosystem through access to the contemporary tools, services, skills that researchers need, all of which are essential for innovation and productivity. We do this by adopting international best practice and standards to support global connectivity, the mobility of research and interoperability across infrastructures where Australian researchers can not only participate in global research projects, but they can lead and initiate them. We also do this by deploying trust and identity solutions in response to national priorities, such as coastal, the square kilometre array, bioinformatics, species conservation, just to name a few. And we don't just provide base capability, we work directly with the research communities to build cohesive, sustainable solutions in response to these thematic challenges. And we do this by ensuring that all solutions support cybersecurity best practice, essential to provide a more secure national research infrastructure ecosystem, which is essential for sovereign resilience. So in summary, through trust and identity capability, we've identified 4 benefits for researchers. Easier access to the national research infrastructure, reducing the time, complexity in accessing multiple NRI services. For better access to international infrastructure and collaborations, a better collaboration ecosystem and experience within industry and the community, and fourthly, a safer, more secure national research ecosystem through cybersecurity best practice. We believe that it's through these commitments that the Australian Access Federation will deliver a sustainable trust and identity capability that enables research, collaboration, and translation, not only now, but for the future. So I know you're eager to know more about what does this look like in practice. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah Thomas, Portfolio Manager, to tell us more.
Thanks, Margie. Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. In a typical user-service provider relationship, a single user would have a separate account for each service. Next slide, please. What we're building means that in a collaborative research environment, services have a shared understanding of who a user is and what relevant permission structures are. And there is the ability for permissions to be managed centrally and for changes in permissions to be propagated out to all services in the collaboration. This means data can be shared between service endpoints without the need for data to be downloaded and re-uploaded. The benefits are, it's consistent. With group management, you don't get the situation where people have rights to some systems but not others. It saves every service effectively doing the same job. It's more easily auditable. Access can be quickly changed to respond to security incidents. Management of the community can be delegated to different people, and a single identity to access all services through one identity. Next slide. Through the trust and identity capability, the main goal is to implement a secure and seamless experience across national research infrastructures, seamlessly connecting the ecosystem even when each research infrastructure is using different technologies, processes, and permission structures. To help achieve our vision, the AF has partnered with national research infrastructures via our incubator program to discover their requirements and test the suitability for a unified framework. I'm delighted to have our colleagues from the National Imaging Facility, Access NRI, and Microscopy Australia here with us today. Next slide. We want to break the framework into small, manageable projects. We like to say that we are building decadal-length partnerships, and the incubator is just the beginning of this partnership. One of the main principles in designing the approach is co-design, meaning that the AAF would design the future state through collaboration with AAF partners, research infrastructures, and researchers as the users of these infrastructures. And from these learnings, evolve the trust and identity framework to ensure it meets the Australian research community requirements. Where possible, our incubators address grand challenges. We want to ensure that the solutions deployed through these incubators harness the entirety of the Australian research infrastructure sector, creating not only an impactful collaboration across research infrastructure landscapes, but co-designing solutions with research communities with these national challenges in mind. Through the flagship program, we seek to deepen engagement with fundamental science and industry partners to ensure trust and identity can support collaborations with more complex requirements, for example, sensitive data. There is one flagship project currently funded, Guardians, or Human Genomics Uplift for Australia through research data infrastructure at national scale. Guardians is accelerating human genomics-related omics research in Australia through the development of world-class digital infrastructure. Their mission is to empower Australian researchers to easily and securely discover, access and analyse human genomics data across national infrastructure, using the latest tools and resources. Guardians is expertly led by the Biocommons, and the AAF is proud to be collaborating on this important initiative. The overall intent of both the incubator and flagship programs is to ensure that the services provided through the AAF can support collaborative research organisations that include audience from industry, government, academia and citizen scientists. I'd like to hand over to my colleague Far, who will provide a high-level overview of the incubator process and the projects to date. Thanks, Far.
Thank you, Sarah. So, as we mentioned, the main goal is to implement a secure and seamless experience across research infrastructure. However, there is diversity in the way the infrastructure are managing currently the access and identity systems. To be able to move towards an integrated, interoperable access and identity management system, AIF has partnered with research facilities via our incubator program to discover the requirements and test the suitability of a unified trust and identity framework. You can see here in the slide the principles for designing the program, and we mentioned co-design earlier, but I want to emphasize on building technology and guidelines that could be used across sector to build standard and interoperable trust and identity solutions. We are also focusing on building long-term partnership with research infrastructure to provide support and guidance required for changing processes and technology through this journey. We will utilize internationally well-recognized trust and identity framework called ARC Blueprint, that stands for Authorization and Authentication for Research Collaboration. And it's a widely adopted framework across European research collaboration. We test and co-design different components of this framework with our incubator partners. The incubator program, as you can see here on the slide, has an iterative approach. We will focus on discovery of the sector requirement, reviewing the framework alignment, and identifying the gaps. Then we design solutions and get feedback and have a feedback loop, and we move towards improving the framework and trust and identity guidelines for Australia research sector. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide shows the methodology that we're using for each incubator. This methodology is developed based on the double diamond methodology that is used in user-centric design software development. And we follow a stage approach with feedback loops and stage gate deliveries. After the initial agreements are set, we start discovery stage. This discovery stage is aimed on identifying all the requirements in relation to access and identity management. We have blue sky limit in the discovery stage. And then through the define stage, then we start focusing on narrowing down and prioritizing our requirements for that incubator. Then in the develop and test stage, we start looking to different solutions and that could solve those problems. We focus on prototyping, test, and reviewing in the design stage. The delivery stage is usually about moving to the production, and we want to make sure that we review the implementation and assess the TNI framework and update that accordingly after the delivery stage. Next slide, please. In this slide, I like to provide some high-level update of our incubators. Currently, we have 7 incubators, and you will hear later from 3 of our partners about their experience, but I just give a very high-level brief. As you can see, our incubators range in different disciplines and different types of facilities with different use cases. We have completed the first phase of incubator with National Imaging Facility, NIF, focusing on clinical trial project, and we have completed a proof of concept. And at the moment, we are reviewing the scope of the work for the second phase of the project. We have 2 incubators for impact tracking. For both of them, the first phases are completed. For Access and RI, we tested how connection to AEF can improve account linking across their platforms, and we are moving in the next phases to have deeper dive in impact tracking requirement for the collaboration between Access and RI and other research infrastructures. For Microsoft Australia, we have completed first phase on discovery of the requirements, identifying gaps, and proposing some solutions. We're looking to move to the next phase of the collaboration with them. We are working with ARDC through multiple projects that are all packed in one incubator. We have completed one project on development of policy pack for one of ARDC's collaborators, SIF, and we are working on aligning between data spaces, trust and identity aspects with trust and identity guidelines that we are developing as well. We are working on developing guidelines and reference architecture for Nectar Cloud as well. We have worked with our HPC providers, NCI, in identifying the assurance requirements. We have completed first phase by development of a survey that helps assessment of assurance levels across identity providers and can be used for identifying existing gaps regarding assurance profiles. For POSI, another HPC provider, we have done an option analysis for the first phase, and our next step with them is to explore requirements for collaboration between POSI and other research infrastructures. And also we have a new incubator, and we had the kickoff meeting with them, Phenomics Australia, recently. And for this incubator, we're focusing on developing a roadmap for trust and identity solutions that facilitate collaborations between Phenomics and other research infrastructures. Overall, we have identified some common requirements across our incubators. So obviously, as I mentioned, each incubator discovery session was done separately, and we identified a list and prioritized them, but they had some similarities. And the common requirements so far are the increasing need for collaboration between research infrastructure. And that means that we need to provide seamless one point of authentication and simplified authorization for researchers. There is a need to facilitate collaboration between industry, government, and research sector through trust and identity solutions. We also identified assurance requirements that can be used in line with authorization requirements. And there is a need for impact tracking, account linking for each research infrastructure separately. And again, that becomes more complicated when we're talking about collaboration between research infrastructures. Now I hand over to Kerry to continue with introducing our guest speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Far, for outlining the incubator process and how it adheres to community values and co-design that the AAF was founded on. And thank you, Margie and Sarah, for introducing us today to the AAF and how it supports the community, the national research priorities, and Australia's grand challenges. I would now like to introduce our first guest speaker, Professor Wojciech Kosinski from Australia's National Imaging Facility, who will speak to the incubator project that we've partnered on. Thank you, Wojciech.
Very much, Kerry. You can hear me okay? Great, thank you. So thank you, firstly, just to the AAF for the opportunity to present the project, and also the last 2 years or year and a half or so of support in undertaking this project. It's been a really terrific experience for the National Imaging Facility. Next slide, please. Just for those of you who may or may not be aware, National Imaging Facility is Australia's advanced imaging network. So we're an increased capability that's responsible for delivering advanced biomedical imaging across Australia. We do that by providing access to advanced expertise in biomedical imaging and advanced instruments. Around about 100 staff across Australia and over 100 instruments across our 14 partners. Our job is to help research translate. Researchers use biomedical imaging for a range of purposes. I won't go into the details today, but typically the types of technologies that you might see in a hospital, such as MR, PET, X-ray, CT, those are the sort of technologies that we apply at National Imaging Facility for our users. And the purpose is overwhelmingly to help with medical research, though we also support other areas. Next slide. Until about a year or so ago, National Imaging Facility was an entirely physical research infrastructure. Our job was to provide access to instruments. We are really, though, one of Australia's major scientific data producers, and it's increasingly important that we also provide the capacity and capability to be able to capture our images, to be able to manage images long-term, and to be able to analyze and publish imaging data at a national scale. With that, we have embarked on a fairly significant program, which is our digital program, to uplift how we actually manage, analyze, and store imaging data across our 14 partners. The first step of that process is this project called our Foundational Data Infrastructure, which is very much based on the Australian Imaging Service led out of the University of Sydney. The purpose of the project is to provide a consistent data management environment that could support all of our partners across 14 sites and beyond as well, to our non-NIF partners as well, a technical roadmap that helps us plan for the future, a support model for node partners and to be able to support national scale projects across our 14 partners, a funding program that helps support expansion and improvement of the environments over time, and an effective infrastructure governance model. This is kicked off just this year and is a core part of the technology stack that we've been working with AAF on. Next slide, please. With that in mind, we have significant trust and identity complexity across our network, and I just wanted to highlight some of this complexity. We have well over 20 locations across our partners, across our 14 partners, and all of those 14 partners might have precinct partners as well that all have different trust and identity solutions as well. We have thousands of users across academia, industry, health, and so I mean clinical health hospitals and private imaging clinics, and international users as well, all with different trust and identity solutions. No single tool does the whole job, so we have multiple data management tools that we support and analysis tools. And you'll see an example of that in a second. Increasingly, two really important features of what we do is we help users move along the translation pipeline. It's our job to help research translate. It's a really important part of the way that we structure our capabilities to help researchers move from fundamental discovery through to preclinical imaging, through to human imaging, and all the way to the interface of the clinic and the healthcare system. With that, a major change that is occurring is the growth of multi-site trials and studies. And that really means an imaging user, a major research project undertaking a trial or a study across multiple sites. Multi-site trials are simply more trusted in the sector and are seen as higher quality and are a way to grow the population base of a trial as well. So they're a really important feature that we want to be able to support. Next slide. So the goal of the incubator was to provide a seamless and secure access to imaging resources, in this case 2 tools, required for clinical trials projects across collaborations within NIF and beyond NIF as well. To achieve this, we're working in a multi-phase approach, and as mentioned before, we've just completed the first phase, which is really a prototyping and discovery process, a proof of concept, as you'd call it. The primary objective is to integrate 2 tools within our tool stack that we provide users with access to. These tools are integrated into our digital program and our digital services that we provide. They are XNAT. XNAT is a imaging data management service which is used to capture and manage large imaging data collections, subject focused. So a subject can get imaged multiple times, can change over time, and can have various characteristics over the lifetime of a study. RADCAP, many of you might know, is a database for managing surveys and other textual data and is commonly used in the clinical trial sector. The purpose of our activity here is to integrate those 2 tools. Next slide. From a trust and identity solution. So the architecture that the AAF has developed is fairly simple. We have XNAT and RADCAP as 2 tools, and they are both controlled, in this case, by CI logon. CI logon, I won't go into. I'm sure Far can answer technical questions about that tool, but is a mechanism, is a tool and service for managing trust and identity across multiple services. And in this case, it is responsible for creating trust and identities across our services and creating projects across our services. So a user simply needs to log on to one service and can get identities and projects created for them and integrated for them across those two tools, XNAT and REDCap. Thank you. Next slide. So the outcomes is a prototype, and we're very happy that we're able to demonstrate that prototype with AAF. CI Logon has absolutely proven to be an effective tool that helps us manage multiple services. This is not a simple process to integrate multiple proprietary tools using one solution, and includes a lot of coding to ensure that we create identities properly and we create projects properly across those services. And it is a prototype. Obviously, next steps would be to test the scalability of this solution, to test the institutional adoption, because many institutions do adopt these services as well, and NIF can't do it alone. It would have to work with our partners, with our institutional partners, to deploy such a solution and test the usability of this solution. It would require some work to get it up to scratch, to put it in front of a user community, and particularly the clinical trials sector, which can be quite unforgiving with regards to the usability of tools. So that's a really important feature that we plan to work on next. Thank you. I think that's all my slides.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Wojciech, for that great overview of the NIF incubator, the TNI solution, and the next steps. I can see there are some questions coming in. We will hold on those to the end of the Q&A section. So if any questions you have, please put them in as we go, and we'll address at that point. And now I'd like to hand over to Kelsey Drucken from Access NRI. Thank you, Kelsey.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. And thanks so much for having us. It's been great to be part of an incubator project. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about who we are. So Access NRI is Australia's climate simulator. We're a relatively new NCRIS facility, so 3 years old now. And a big part of these first few years has been establishing a lot of our core processes across our infrastructure and community. And we're here to help what is called the Access model, the Australian Community Climate and Earth System Simulator, which is essentially the fundamental software framework and tools used to support climate modeling research. So these are computer simulations for climate weather in our systems. And the key is that we have specialists and funding here in Australia to make sure that these are designed for the Australia and Southern Hemisphere context. Some of the areas that Access NRI, or the tools that we support and form, include scientific research, climate projections, weather prediction, and of course, climate information that goes into government decision making. Next slide, please. I won't go through every single item here on this slide, but just to give you a bit of understanding of the areas that the software infrastructure we support leads into in terms of impact. This ranges from future-proofing some of our Australian sovereign climate research and capabilities, understanding really fundamental climate system processes, things like El Nino and La Nina, and basically you can. Climate information is more and more critical into so many things that go into our everyday lives and decision making here. Next slide, please. So just a bit about the Access framework. So this is a complex software framework, and it includes components that represent all the different Earth systems that are essential for climate models and climate prediction. And these are complex software code bases, and it involves a range of expertise, both scientific and software engineering, and this has led to the establishment of our research infrastructure. Next slide, please. So in terms of trust and identity complexity, a few things I wanted to point out about our infrastructure and the work we support. For the access system, a particular challenge for us is that it's distributed software, and this is across Australia, but then also internationally. So each of these little circles and parts of the system, land, ocean, sea ice, biogeochemistry, atmosphere, they are all different software repositories. They come from different parts all over the world, different contributors, and they all need to work together in order to form the Earth system model that we use in our research and future projections. And so lots of contributors, many repositories to track, and many, just to give you a sense of scale, even though lines of code sometimes isn't a perfect measure, but it's complex, it's large, and that distributed aspect can be quite challenging for us in terms of trust and identity. It also is challenging in terms of distributed usage. So we support the software and data products that come out of the framework, but users run the models, the simulations on different infrastructures. So we need to work across infrastructures in order to understand how our tools and the things we support are being used. It's also mainly open source. So this can be challenging in terms of impact tracking, which is really important for us because it means we don't necessarily have something like a subscription service, a cost, or a registration process where we can understand how the tools that we support are being used, what's most critical to devote our resources and effort, and also just understanding the value more generally that our research infrastructure provides. And then I put an additional one here about collaborative science. So this is also really important to us. The area we support is so complex. We need to bring different expertise together, and that's scientific. That's also technical engineering and data support. And we need a community and a place and a platform to support and nurture that collaboration, and understanding the value of that. It's very difficult to quantify, but it's important for us as part of one of the key areas we support. Next slide, please. So in terms of our work with AAF as part of one of the incubator projects, we had a goal to try and look at how we can build some of the foundational aspects of our impact tracking. And a key step for us, especially because of the distributed nature of our software and our usage, was to look at ways where we can improve account linking. So that transparency of users that are working in our different GitHub repositories to people that are running on HPC platforms, and also coming together in one of our kind of core Access NRI platforms for discussion and collaboration, which is the Access Hive forum here that you see on the screen. So our approach with AAF was to look at how we can map those users in a way leveraging TNI approaches. And the ultimate objective here was to try and be able to identify users across the different platforms of where they work and collaborate. Next slide, please. So one of the real key outcomes for us was that we identified, a relatively simple solution with services that AAF provides to enable, like I said, an important foundation for us. So using AAF as one of the registration and authentication mechanisms within our forum that allowed us to have a way to map our users as they moved across systems. And this was important for us because it forms that that mechanism as we scale and grow into the future. And in particular, looking at how different advancements and developments that happen across GitHub, which is a really important platform for us, how we can understand value and advancements and innovation across into that space, in addition to HPC systems. And the next step for us, so we've rolled out, we have our AAF authentication mechanism on our forum. So that's now complete and active for our users, which was a really great milestone to meet with the incubator team. And we're now looking at how we can explore some of the complex or hard to track information that happens on HPC centers directly, and working with POSI to look at some use cases and some of the key things that as HPC stakeholders we are interested in knowing about our software and data products that we deploy and support at HPC centers. And I think that might be my last slide. Yes, okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelsey. That was really informative and highlighted the goal of your incubator, how it can improve linking account access for Access NRI to improve reporting and impact tracking. I am now going to hand over to Lisa, our final guest speaker for today. Dr. Lisa Yen is CEO of Microscopy Australia, and thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. Great to be here. If we can go on to the next slide, thanks. So somewhat similar to the challenges and I guess some of the complexity of what we're working with, Microscopy Australia is an open access network that allows researchers from academia and from industry to be able to have that opportunity to work with the experts within our facilities, but also access the advanced microscopes that are placed around the country in strategic locations. And that is really about enabling global research efforts, both to be led here in Australia, but also to connect with our collaborators overseas. So those high impact research outcomes, really are built on high quality training through our facilities. We develop learning resources that then are helping to inspire and build a future skilled workforce. You'll see that we've got a combination of both facilities where we are directly supporting instruments and experts, and we also have connections through our linked laboratories where we provide opportunities for professional development for the staff that are there supporting their own research groups and activities. So for us, when we think about a scale bar, we're really talking about picometers to centimeters. So that is really in that sort of atoms and molecules up to around about the Rubik's Cube sort of size, if that helps you think about it. Let's go on to the next slide, thanks. So for us, in terms of why do we think that that sort of scale bar is important? Well, that's because the structural knowledge is really a thread that weaves through all of knowledge creation. For us, we see how it underpins innovation, validates models, and unlocks new perspectives. So Microscopy Australia is empowering researchers to see and understand the world at its most fundamental levels. That can be mapping atomic arrangements for next generation quantum devices, developing sustainable biomaterials, or tracing the origins of critical minerals for future green technologies. So driving breakthroughs by mastering matter at the atomic and molecular scale helps with reducing energy and resource consumption, accelerating medical advances, and shaping the future of materials sciences. And it's our cutting edge facilities and expertise that provide that foundation for that discovery. So for us, we think of it in the thousands of researchers across Australia. And in fact, it was over 4,000 last year, over 300 instruments, but these are just some 5-year averages. And as you've probably already heard, you'll see some of that diversity in the donuts there about the research communities that we support and also the industry sectors. So we might move on to the next slide, thanks. So I've called this the wonderful world of PIDs, persistent identifiers, and I guess this was really the theme that came through the incubator work that we did with AAF. You'll understand, I think, through some of the themes of the other presenters that, you know, that complexity of whether it's data formats, whether it's the people, whether it's their organisations that they're coming from. What we really wanted to work with AAF to understand was to think about how our usage data, how we are looking at the reports, how they can then be tracked through to value and impact. So, for example, we did start at a bit of a fundamental building block, which was orchids, to try and think about how we could look at our users and map that path both between facilities, but also across facilities. So, and that's because being with those 9 participating organisations, you know, we are looking at a range of different facility management systems, a range of different registration systems, processes, and data points. I think the opportunity between Microscopy Australia and AAF was the fact that, as you've heard, AAF have developed their trust and identity framework. And so this gave an opportunity to do some testing of their community attribute services that was part of that. And so thinking about some of these persistent identifiers that can be used, we then worked with basically ours was really just more in that discovery phase rather than an implementation or a solution. And I'd certainly like to acknowledge the work that David Poger, who was our research data manager, but also our facilities that were at the University of Queensland, UNSW Sydney, the University of Adelaide, and also Monash University did to try and look at how it is that we're capturing some of this information. So it really was about looking at current state, but it was also then looking at some recommendations and future potential improvements. So if we go on to the next slide. What I guess we received out of this was a scoping report that AAF have developed. And I think what that really identified was there's still opportunities for additional education regarding the benefit of orchids. And for example, we featured that at one of our staff workshops recently so that staff could get more of an understanding of orchids, as well as I think there's an education, particularly within higher education student cohorts. We also started to explore how we can integrate orchid data collection into registration processes and existing facility management systems within our institutions, noting that, of course, each of our participating institutions has their own systems that they're currently using. And we wanted to try and think about recommendations for how we could enhance user access by using AAF credentials as part of that registration process as a potential future next step, but also trying to think about how we can leverage our understanding and expertise as well as building on the maturity within some of our facilities to think about other persistent identifiers such as those for instruments to be adopted into the future. So in terms of, I guess, some of our next steps of where we see this is going, I think the scoping report that we received, really did identify some of that complexity and the need to work closely with our host institutions for those future improvements to be implemented. And I'd probably also just like to note that, this is, as I said, within that global context. Both the National Imaging Facility and Microscopy Australia are part of a global initiative called Founding the Global Image Data Ecosystem. And so we certainly see opportunities in terms of metadata standards, as well as things like orchids and persistent identifiers for instruments as fitting really neatly within that broader context. What we're looking for, of course, is improved business processes and streamlining instrument and individual the instrument outputs and the identification of individuals who have accessed our facilities for reporting, so that value add is able to be tracked for Microscopy Australia, and we see relevance for the broader national research infrastructure sector as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great. Thank you for that overview of the incubator and how ORCID and PIDS works into it for a trust and identity solution for your organisation. And a big thank you to all of our speakers today and for their very detailed and high-level, insightful contributions. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to open the floor to questions. We have had some questions answered in the Q&A part, but there's a few questions in there. And so let's dive into that at this point in time. And what I might do is take it from the top and say, Jake Sermon's question: are the learnings from these pilots going to be shared with the community? And I'll throw that open to the panel and maybe the AF team.
Do you want me to answer that? Yes. Yes, they're going to be shared, and we'll have a BOF session and a research conference that we talk about the outcomes of incubators in more details and the findings. So definitely you're welcome to join us there. And we try to share those outcomes through these webinars and other methods that we have. But definitely a research conference, the BOF session, will discuss those outcomes.
And to add to that, we can expect more webinars like this to showcase some of the other partnerships and collaborations that the Australian Access Federation has in place now. And, you know, we are also seeing how some of our collaborators are also publishing the work that's been undertaken and the key learnings and so forth. So I think as this environment evolves and grows, we'll identify all appropriate opportunities to share the insights, the inputs, and the outcomes that have been gained from having this trust and identity capability strategy and program in place.
Thank you.
And maybe just to add to that, Jake, if it was the Microscopy Australia one, if you were interested in learning more, very happy to hear from you.
As is true of MEF.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next question in the Q&A. From Jeff. Jeff, I'm interested in the challenge of how access to research infrastructure can be granted to individuals who are not associated with Australian academia or AF subscribers, but are still undertaking research. The industry, government, health affiliated people already mentioned. So what is the current thinking about how this might be achieved? And I'm going to throw this one to Far. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. So yes, we have identified many use cases regarding this in the research sector. And this is one of the priorities we are looking at that. And we're looking for a solution that's sustainable for the research environment and the technology landscape of Australia. And definitely it's on AF roadmap, and we're looking forward to that as well. But yeah, the sustainability of the solutions and the technology landscape is what we're assessing right now.
Thank you, Far. Lisa.
Thanks. I was just going to add to that I know for us that was one of the reasons for the interest in looking at orchids, because of course, you know, depending on your use of an orchid and the research that you're planning on doing, there is that possibility for that to not just be associated with academia. It has got the potential for it to be broader.
Thanks, Lisa. All right. anybody else, please feel free to jump in as we go as well. We've also had another question coming in from Conrad. And what's the status of the national AAI with respect to certification against ISO 27000? Hand that over to Far.
We are looking to alignment of the TNI framework. So national AAI, I would word it as a TNI framework with other standards as well. And as we're doing that, ISO 27000 is one of them that we are looking to the alignment, and we definitely look how these standards are aligned and make sure that that's the standards or the policies that exist in the sector or on the higher level, on the national level. We make sure that they're all aligned with TNI framework.
Thank you, Var.
Yes. I just wanted to say about Amanda that you asked about migrating existing users to the new user management systems. I mentioned in the answer that you can contact us. We'll contact you with your support team. Also, Patrick, probably we can help you on that as well.
Thank you. Wonderful. Another question, a question for Lisa. When it comes to ORCID, anyone can create them. So how do you deal with ensuring that such identities are for who they say they are? That's
Thanks, Gav. Look, I'm going to be honest. I'm not an ORCID expert, and so I guess from my perspective, that probably fits outside my area of expertise. I feel like quite possibly there would be people who are more closely involved with ORCID about the processes of identity management that relate to that. But yes, we do definitely see the opportunities for using an ORCID such that then you do have that ability for registration for a user across multiple facilities. So that's our interest rather than the intricacies of how people go about creating them. So I'm sorry, I can't answer your question.
I think I can add to that we are one of the priorities we have identified across sector is identity assurance. And identity assurance is ORCID identity or any other identity. And that's how that identity assurance can be managed across sector is one of the solutions that AEF is also looking to as part of the TNI framework. And that can be managed differently as a third party or the IDP themselves. But I think in case of ORCID also can be a third party. But we are looking to the solution for identity assurance with social identities and ORCID as well and other IDPs.
Thank you, Far. That's great. So at this point, we've answered all the questions that have come into the Q&A. Thank you. I'm just wondering if there's any other points that our guest speakers would like to touch on today as well. Any final feedback for the community and highlights? They might be around the experience of...
I'm happy to kick off if you want, Kerry.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, look, I think it was just a really good opportunity to have some focused work, and align that experience and expertise between, our staff within Microscopy Australia facilities, but also thinking about it from that trust and identity across a broader range of application areas. So this is just one example where we could do a bit of a deeper dive and do that discovery work that I don't think that we would have had quite that same impetus to without the partnership with AAF. So really appreciated the work that it kicked off within our organisation.
Thanks, Lisa. I might hand to Wojciech.
Just to say really quickly that I think that doing this at national scale is a huge effort, but is terribly important as we move towards a more integrated and productive research ecosystem. So certainly, really enjoyed the experience of working with AEF on this, and look forward to future projects as well, whether it's SNF or other suppliers and partners that can benefit off what NIF has done as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I might throw to Margie.
Well, can I suggest that you go to Kelsey first and then me?
Kelsey, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, very quickly, I wanted to echo the other panelists and the opportunity that we had to work with AAF. I think we learned, especially as a newer facility, how many commonalities and similar needs we have across the digital infrastructure space. And it was just fantastic to learn from the AAF T&I experts. We understood our processes better by working with them, which was like an added bonus we didn't expect. And yeah, it's just great to have this type of coordinated and funded effort that I think will help mature the research infrastructure space more broadly. Big uplift. So thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity today.
Thank you, Kelsey. And Margie.
I think what today has really shown is just how complex the research ecosystem is. We all know it, but it was so eloquently shared with us today by our guest speakers. And for those who are in the audience today, you understand the complexity and challenges of the research ecosystems, infrastructures that you have association affiliation with. I think a takeaway for me listening to the panel today is that the Australian Access Federation can, through its expertise, through policy, through application, can facilitate productivity and optimization by taking away some of those technical overheads or providing time-saving guidance, advice, and so forth, as well as looking at how we can gather all these wonderful insights and inputs from the incubator programs to shape the next steps or what that step change will be for national research infrastructure and the role that the Australian Access Federation will play. It's complex, and it's been great to hear that through these processes that we've been able to identify potentially common, shared, federated approaches to addressing some of these challenges. So I really, I've gained so much by listening to our panel today. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie, for that summary. And thank you again to all of our guest speakers. And thank you for the audience that joined us here today. We are slightly over time. We thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions following up from that, please reach out to us. There's some contact details on the website here, or you can reach out to us directly. And I will now bring this session to a close. Thank you.